Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Invincible Season 2, Episode 1, A Lesson for Your Next Life. I don't know that I'll be doing weekly reviews for Invincible, but I wanted to do one for the first episode to kind of get you back into this world. With Gen V wrapping up, this is now our big superhero stuff over at Prime, so I wanted to at least check it out. I'm a big fan of the series. I haven't read a lot of the comic, but I have read some of it. But I tried not to read ahead just to make sure that everything I'm experiencing from the animated show feels new and feels fresh. And I think it's better to later on go see how the adaptation was done. So, in this episode, in the aftermath of his father's betrayal, Mark struggles with his responsibilities as Invincible as he encounters a new threat. This show stars Stephen Yeun as Mark Grayson, aka Invincible, Sandra Oh as Debbie Grayson, Invincible's mom, J.K. Simmons as Nolan Grayson, aka Omni-Man. We have Sassy Beat as Amber, Starling K. Brown, a new addition to this cast as Armstrong Levy. We have Walton Goggins as Cecil, one of my favorites. Gillian Jacobs as Eve, and we also have Jason Mantzoukas as Rex, another one of my favorite voices in this cast. So I'm gonna get into spoilers in a little bit, but let's talk about this season premiere without spoilers, just to so you can get a feel of it. I think that the show does a really fun thing at the beginning where it remembers where you left off last season, and it wants to, it almost feels like it's a little bit disjointed, but once the show starts unraveling and you get the full story, you understand what the show's setting up. So I think this is a great setup for season 2. I don't know how long this setup will take us through the season. I don't know exactly. It feels like Invincible has such great flexibility of pacing where they can condense some of those maybe comic book arcs into a couple of like a smaller 3 or 4 episode arc, as opposed to spending the whole season with just one big bad. And that's the cool thing about Invincible. There's definitely a lot of enough things set up in this episode for that. We also really get to see how Mark is dealing with everything that happened after season 1. The voice cast is fantastic. I think I just love everyone that they've been able to bring into the show. Does such a good job, because even though some of them have very recognizable voices, they really get lost in the character, and they really become the characters that we're seeing. Um, I think there's still a few things about this animation that I don't know if they're choices or they're things that are like they're just kind of little things that they couldn't get completely done. I don't really know. I don't have enough expertise in animation to know if those are stylistic choices. If they're stylistic choices, I'm not vibing with them. But if they're just things that maybe aren't supposed to look like that, then that's probably the reason that I don't feel like they achieve something. Uh, but in the big moments, the big fights, all those big things, like they still manage to do a really good job putting these action sequences together. Of course, I think one of the fun things about this adaptation is that there was already some pretty unhinged character designs, and just bringing them to life in animation, I think it's really fun to see what kind of changes and how they adapt things. Whereas, because animation's still a very different animal than comics is. So that's really fun to see. But yeah, I quite enjoy this. I'm glad we're back in this world. I'm glad to see Invincible is back with all the heap of troubles. And I do love that Mark is such a relatable character. You feel for him every time something goes wrong. His motivations are clear, even though everything else around him is kind of a mess. At least we know who Mark is, and that's very important as the lead of the show. So let's get into spoilers here. I'm gonna kind of go through some of the big events and just talk about what that means maybe going forward. So we begin, and this is a really fun trick, I think, if you're down to play. We begin with a look at Mark teaming up with Omni-Man, right, to destroy everything. Now, after the events of last season, you're just kind of wondering what the fuck is happening. But then we realize that this is an alternate Earth. We meet Angstrom Levy, whose powers is to transport open portals from one dimension to the other. Now he can't open portals within the same dimension, which is really it's an interesting way to limit this being to being like pretty powerful. It's a really interesting place to just put some limitations on that power and make sure that it's not abused as far as the plot device. But we do learn that in most other dimensions, Levy does tells us that Mark ends up teaming with Omni-Man to do what they're what he wants them to do. So in our dimension, in the dimension that we've been following from season one, this was not the case. So that's very interesting. So the Levy also breaks out the Mauler twins because the Mauler twins are the most entertaining duo in this show. So it's really fun to see them back. Also, they are very smart, and Esther and Levy he needs them to power up this machine that will give him pretty much all the knowledge from all his variant counterparts from across different dimensions, so he can figure out how to help him out, right? Because he mentions in some other dimensions they've solved world hunger, they've solved, they've cured cancer, they've solved war. So he wants to learn how they did that in each of those places to be able to apply those solutions to the same problems in other dimensions. Overall, overall that seems like a very altruistic goal, but obviously it's going to come with some issues, right? And of course that's kind of what leads us to where we are. Another fun thing, we get to see that Mark, he wants to be a hero, he's doing like small little hero things, but Cecil just won't let him be a full-on superhero, right? I think Cecil still has a lot of mistrust from, and I think very well earned that that Cecil feels his way because Omni-Man, the man who had been working with him for so many years, betrayed him. So he can't. How can he trust his own son? His son, not his own son, but like Omni-Man's son. But Mark wants to be a superhero. We also see Immortal returns to these Guardians, these new Guardians that have been put together from the remaining heroes from season one, which is part of where we see a lot of, we could see Adam Eve and we could see Rex and some of the other characters that kind of go along with that robot and all that. So, and those characters also have really fun dynamics within themselves. That I won't go too deep into it, but I think it's really fun to see them back. And just kind of see them powers too. Like those fight sequences with them are also a lot of fun because I just love dumb superhero stuff, and that just really like that's a big part of the show. So finally, Mark agrees to work for Cecil, and abide by his rules and whatever. So Cecil sends him to see what the Maulers are up to and stop them. Uh, so they built this machine with all these variants of Levy, and they're in the process of powering everything up to give him all this knowledge. Invincible shows up, things go wrong, the machine blows up, and of course Levy becomes the villain. He now becomes a villain because he has a lot of these memories from all his other variants where in their worlds Invincible is a villain and he is an antagonist and he wants to kill everything, right? And like I mentioned, in most of the other dimensions, Mark did join his father in destroying the world and conquering it for the Voltrumites. So yeah, we leave off in a really interesting place. I don't know how long Levi is going to be a villain. The fact that they brought in Sterling K. Brown to voice him gives me an indication that it's going to be a big part of the show. You don't just bring Sterling K. Brown as a bit of a cameo; you bring him in to kind of be your big bad, as you would like Giancarlo Esposito or somebody like that. So yeah, I'm very excited for this season. Like I said, I don't think that I'll be covering this on a weekly basis. Maybe I'll do if they have smaller arcs. Maybe I'll do that, um, where we'll cover a bunch of episodes at once. But yeah, I'm very excited for the rest of Invincible and this whatever this season brings us. And like I said, the only big issues I had was a little bit of a thing with the animation and just overall, I really enjoy this season premiere. So very excited to see where that goes. If you have seen this episode, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Uh, Also, at the end of the season, I'll try to find out how far we are into the comics, like kind of, to try to see if maybe I can keep reading now. So yeah, if you are aware of that, let us know down in the comments. Like, what volumes are we covering with some of these episodes? Because some of these episodes cover like quite a few issues. Like they can adapt a lot of issues into one episode, because these episodes are about an hour or so, like within that range. So stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to share, like, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching, everyone. Bye bye.